welcome, Oliver, to our podcast, to Luminspino podcast. Thank you for agreeing to be part of the podcast. I would like to mention for the audience that Mr. Oliver Hasse is Managing Director of INAM Berlin. But nevertheless, I would invite you, Oliver, to introduce yourself properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raluca. Obviously, it's my pleasure and honor to be featured on this podcast. But basically, it's not about myself, but it's about INAM, the organization that I lead. And I'm, of course, always very happy to discuss the particular challenges and opportunities that are entailed in the work that we do. But allow me 3 words about myself. My name is Oliver Hasse, as you correctly said already, Managing Director of INAM. I have a background for most of my life in consulting, mainly consulting with companies that have a high-tech focus, and the spread is basically ranging from startups, as I do now, to large enterprises that span their activities around the world. My passion has always been on finance, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and bringing these things together is what really drives my ambition and my involvement with INAM.
Thank you, Oliver. Just a quick information for our audience about how we met each other. Actually, it was because you mentioned finance. We met during a training program of Invest Europe. It was like 5, 6, 7 years ago in Frankfurt. And at that time, I remember that we attended the training on fund structuring. So I know that you have an important background as well in investment management. So that connects well with the profile that you are serving now, for companies. So as far as Luminspino is concerned, and myself, Luminspino is a company that is supporting companies, but also public organizations along the innovation value chain, because we are not looking only to the innovation that comes from the private sector, but also about innovation in public services, and of course, everything that concerns strategies and their implementation. Myself, well, before Luminspino, I was working extensively with Enterprise Europe Network and services to support companies. So even by that time, some years ago, I understand how complex the needs are at the level of companies, and how well prepared networks like INAM or consulting companies like Luminspino need to be in order to deliver actually impact for companies, because that's at the core of the question. It's not only that we create programs that are well structured and that have very good content, but to look at what is the impact that we create for the companies. And I would like to start with the impact, and then we can talk more extensively about the programs. But I would like to ask you first, which is the impact that you are seeking for the companies while doing the programs of INAM, while designing them and implementing them?
Sure, very happy to share our view on that. I think first and foremost, one has to realize, and I should maybe spend this minute or so to explain what actually is our focus, and then the impact immediately becomes clear from that. So since the inception of INAM, the focus was on what at the time were, let's say, difficult startups to handle, difficult from the point of view of the predominant let's say, investment hypothesis. So wind back to 2016, where there was the big hype about digitalization, and perhaps even more so about e-commerce, fintech, insurtech, etc., etc. That said, at the same time, Berlin has a very rich research and university ecosystem, and therefore a lot of potential to spin out startups from these universities and research institutes, but the ecosystem was not really established for that. So a couple of people got together from various relevant ecosystem players, namely Humboldt University, Berlin partner, Vista, the management company of the science park here, and also the Berlin Senate via a funding program to create INAM with the goal to support the success of startups in the space of advanced materials. Now, advanced materials, again, is a very wide field, and still we see diverse startups, and Luca were able to witness that, I guess, also when you attended our recent demo day. So we look at startups ranging from biodegradable materials like biodegradable plastics to really substitution materials for silicon in computer chips, for instance. So it's really a wide spectrum. Nonetheless, these startups share a quite similar challenge, which is firstly, many investors see them as difficult because of the different risk portfolio or risk set that they have. And also, generally, they tend to take longer time to reach the enterprise value multiples that investors are looking for. Hence, what we set out to do is help these startups to be more investable, to become more attractive targets, and therefore also be more successful in their way of entering the market, and thereby also shortening the time to that.
Yes, I understand the point, and you already uncovered several needs at the level of companies. I would like to go back a little bit in time, a few weeks ago, when the demo day of ADMA Scale happened in Berlin. You hosted it in Berlin. I was there, and actually I wanted very much to be there because I had the discussions during the mentoring sessions online with some of the companies, and I wanted to meet them face to face and to discuss more with the managers. And indeed, from what you are saying, I also noticed a few patterns in terms of the needs and the challenges that these companies have. It is very interesting that all the companies in your program, and correct me if I'm wrong, all of them, they had very high intensity of innovation. So basically the innovation was radical, almost breakthrough innovation. On the other hand, almost all of them needed more time to get from proof of concept or prototype into the demonstration, the TRL 6-7. And most of them also had some risks, innovation risks, alongside this maturity level journey. So it's interesting, and I always was fascinated to see that even if the innovation is breakthrough innovation, that particular aspect does not guarantee any market success, and does not even guarantee that the product will even arrive to the market. What's your experience from the previous years and in the ADMA Scale and the other programs?
Absolutely. You're making a very, very important point here. And this is basically that innovation per se does not make a product. And this is one of the key messages, and therefore one of the key impacts that we strive to have. When companies, particularly in the earlier phases of their existence, join one of our programs, oftentimes they're run by scientists, and they, of course, have a mindset which is innovation focused and less market or product development focused. And oftentimes their conviction is that having an innovation, having something that is entirely new to the world, will guarantee that there will be market success. And that may be the case, but it's not a guarantee. And that's one of the maybe hard lessons they have to learn in the early phases of running a business, that innovation alone does not guarantee market success. So what we're trying to equip them with is many, many data points, i.e. conversations with mentors such as yourself, but also from industry, from investors and all other relevant walks of life to get a better grip on where to place their product, how to shape the product, and how to market the product to be really successful in the market.
Right. Thank you. Let's look now a little bit into the offering of the programs. I would like to mention a few details about the current mentoring program that Luminspino is implementing. So we started already this summer to launch the first call. We onboarded more or less 1 month ago the first cohort of 4 companies from Romania. And now we have 6 more applicants in the second cohort. Our target in the pilot phase, because the mentoring program for climate innovation in our case is in the pilot phase. So our target in the pilot phase are 10 companies, because we would like to go in very much in depth with each of the companies until spring next year, so that to be able to deliver results for them. So I would like to mention a little bit about how it goes. So in our case, we have structured the mentoring program, and once again, I must stress it is for climate innovation. So it welcomes companies from different sectors that each of them they generate through their innovative product or process positive impacts on in terms of sustainability. And we have structured the program alongside a few what we called drivers. So innovation strategy, innovation lifecycle, then advancement of the technology readiness level, and also enablers. And in the enablers area, we look at internationalization, for example, or funding strategy, or digitalization. So we are our approach is to provide an integrated, a complete cycle of mentoring. And how it goes is that we start with the diagnosis of the current status of the innovative product or process. Then we go into the first step, that is a first workshop, where we discuss about the results of the diagnosis and how the mentoring can approach the needs. And then we continue towards an action plan, because we are supporting throughout the mentoring that the companies directly work on an action plan. Can it be an action plan to go from technology readiness level 5 to 6, or it can be an action plan for using digitalization as an enabler for the current innovation within the company. So again, it's the complete cycle of the mentoring, and then we want to already show that in spring next year there are improvements, and that there are new prospects for the company, so that they move faster with the innovation towards the market, or scale it in the case of those that already have the products on the market. So this is in our case. Of course, INAM has more experience with such programs in the previous years. So please share with us which are INAM's programs and how they approach the needs of the companies.
Yeah, we are very happy to have introduced last year 2 further programs that complement our traditional ATMA-COM, Advanced Materials Competition program, to really address the concrete needs in each developmental stage of the startup. So we have ATMA Lab, that's addressing the pre-founding to, let's say, pre-seed round needs of startups. Then we have AtmaCom, which is mainly in the phase where startups are looking for industry prototype partners to test their products in a real life environment. And then finally, we have AtmaCom Scale, which is supposed to lead to growth stage financing, be that Series A or late seed, whichever label you want to attach to it. And these programs are really tailored to the needs that we have identified in each of these phases. So starting with Atma Lab, it's much more focusing on getting entrepreneurship spirit, company fundamentals, inspiration about how to go to market, but also lab space. We're trying to connect the startups with lab space partners where they can actually work in the lab and develop their products. When it comes to AtmaCom, we're more traditionally looking at the typical startup trainings that you have: pitch training, financial training, legal training, and particularly in our area, IP and patent strategy training. All these things are super relevant at this stage, of course. And then finally, in AtmaCom Scale, I like to describe it a bit like a mini MBA for advanced materials entrepreneurs. It's focusing much more on how do I get my organization ready to scale, and that ranges from the target operating model to the leadership team composition, to things such as what is my exit strategy if I have one, and how do I prepare for due diligence in a Series A funding round. Now, and also the mentoring in these different programs are slightly different. And I basically see two ways of approaching mentoring. One is kind of the long-term mentor that you see every week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or maybe every month, and that accompanies you and basically also takes stock of your progress and comments upon that. And then there is this other type of mentoring, which is really, let's say, sometimes described as much more of a speed dating, and the latter we apply in our, let's say, more mature programs, AtmaCom and AtmaCom Scale. So usually startups in these programs get exposure to 10 to 15, sometimes up to 20 different mentors in 45-minute sessions. And these sessions are blocked in 4 hours at various points during the program. That gives a number of opportunities, both on the, let's say, hard side and on the soft side. On the hard side, it makes the startups really take up pace and be prepared for these meetings and perform well in these meetings. And secondly, on the soft side, of course, each and every mentor has something to share, be that knowledge, contacts, insights with the startups that they're mentoring. And looking at the set of mentors that we have, as I said, it's a diverse array of people ranging from investors to specialists from corporates to lawyers to finance experts to consultants on various topics, etc. So it's very diverse. So the startups get all this feedback, and if they really leverage these sessions, i.e. they come prepared, they know what they want to get from the mentor, they can collect a lot of data points, which I've mentioned already, that will help them to sharpen their business idea and the go-to-market for their product. It also, of course, trains them to go through this process and be very sharp for each and every meeting they have. And you can oftentimes see in the course of a program that at the beginning they're kind of, okay, there's a mentoring session. Let's have a nice chat of 45 minutes with that person. Let's see what's coming out. And then through the program, they realize, okay, this is an opportunity, and they want to get out of it as much as possible, so they come much more prepared. Of course, there are the cases which, are very professional and very prepared from the outset, so they leverage the very first mentoring session as much as the very last one. And then, of course, there are also cases that where they don't really leverage to the maximum the opportunities that we give them. Having said that, so you have, let's say, these 15 mentoring sessions. Having said that, oftentimes we see that the dialogue continues with the mentor after the program, and that's of course the ideal case. We don't expect that in each and every, or for each and every mentor, but for one of two or two out of the 15, let's say, it can well happen, and that then is kind of a longer-term mentoring relation. That said, of course, each mentor has also their own interest. Right? If I'm from a corporate looking for technologies and I find a startup that's relevant, I might want to engage in a discussion to maybe then, at a certain point in the future, launch a pilot project with them. If I'm an investor, I might want to invest in the startup after I've talked to them, let's say, for half a year on a regular basis and have seen their development. And that, of course, is then a much, much better trust basis also for the former mentor than business partner to build upon than if you go through the, let's say, more formal procedures, i.e. coming through, let's say, corporate procurement or scouting or coming through the deal flow channel at a VC. So in that case, I think it's a win-win situation in many cases. And when we have the startups evaluate our programs, we see every year again that the mentoring sessions are ranked amongst the most useful components of the programs.
I would like to introduce our second speaker in the podcast, Mr. Marko Sepa from Finland. He is the founder and CEO of Hippoenabler. And he will address a few very interesting aspects about the role of enablers, because INAM and Luminspino and Hippoenabler as well, we are all enabler organizations. So we are enabling companies to achieve goals, business goals, innovation goals, scale-up goals. As well as he will have a few insights into what means to actually lead companies into scaling, into the scalability of the innovation. Our invitee today is Mr. Marko Sepa from Finland. To introduce Marko, first and foremost, with the current position that he has as founder and CEO of Hippoenabler. He will tell us more about what this means in the upcoming minutes. Other than founder and CEO of his own company, Marko has an extensive experience in many roles. So many roles that are different in an innovation ecosystem. Professor, so researcher, academia, but as well investor. And he calls himself a scale-up doctor, which is a pretty difficult type of medicine nowadays. So Marko, welcome to the podcast, and I would be very happy first of all to understand what's your view on entrepreneurship, this type of calling and ambition that is not very easily attainable, but nevertheless very, very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, Raluca, for having me and inviting me to this program. Very exciting. And what a first question. The approach to entrepreneurship. This reminds me of the difficulty, first of all, of being a parent, being a father, and I often make the analogy when it comes to entrepreneurship and having your own firm, building your own company, to being a father or a parent to a child. People who are not yet parents to children, they may read about it in the books. But to become a parent, become a father or mother, it kind of is totally disruptive, and it's earth-shaking. To change, there's no coming back or going back. So this is the same thing with entrepreneurship. You may be a responsible person, have a job, do well in your role, but when you emerge from that, start your own company. It is like having your own own venture baby. Now, the difference is between having, let's say, human children and venture children. The big difference is that, as we know it, we need a mother and father, two biological parents to have a child. We are limited also to these two. Well, a human child can have, thankfully, grandparents, maybe godparents, sometimes stepdad, stepmom, but the parenting is kind of limited to human children. But when it comes to venture babies, we are not so limited to just mother and father. We can have 7 fathers. We can have multiple mothers. We can have an optimal parenthood. We can build a dream team around our venture child. And I think when we've heard all that, don't fall in love with your company, maybe it means more that don't love it to death. Make sure that it always has the best parents, the best, let's say, combination of parents who love the child and want the best for it to grow. So this is just to, I guess, get us out of the gate, Raduga.
Well, I remember from one of our interactions in the past, because we have been in touch for several years now, and I remember that when I started Luminspino, I talked to you about several entrepreneurship issues and challenges. I remember that at some point when we were discussing a case of a company, of a potential scale up, you told to the team, the team was made up from 2 owners. I remember that you told them, have you considered inviting other shareholders as well? And you told them it will be like you will have a share of something that will be larger, bigger. So I remember those points. Tell me, Marco, about Hippoenabler. How did you arrive to this idea? Because now it is a very strong innovation scalability assessment available for companies. Tell me, how did you arrive to building up this product actually and service?
Yeah, it's a long story. To make it a bit shorter, I would like to take the point of a very particular breed of venture children first. There are many kinds of enterprises that you can become an entrepreneur for and have that are very, very valuable to economy and society at large. All small businesses, all entrepreneurship, all small businesses are valuable when they produce healthy jobs and everything. But there's a particular breed of young companies and like potential enterprises which has caught my attention. I call them high impact potential startups. So high impact potential startups are enterprises or projects which have high potential for both impact and profit. Transformative enterprises, some could call them. These highly important young ventures are often created and innovated by extremely bright people, extremely bright scientists, people in deep verticals, masters of their own domains. They create new materials, new processes, new devices, something that are earth-shaking, and make our problems, solve our problems, some of the biggest ones. But for these founders who are innovators of these kinds of potential venture babies and eventual companies, they're challenged to bring those things to market, those solutions to markets, and create enterprises that create those healthy jobs and grow sustainably, find the right way of defining their customer to get the customer, reach acceptance, and serve the customers. This is very, very difficult and it is very challenging. So we had an initiative where we tried to help these kind of innovators to find co-entrepreneurs. so that they could invite them by their side. And then it became important for us to somehow help these individuals to describe their business case and describe their situation. And that was kind of taking all the time, and it was difficult. So we innovated an approach whereby we formed generic, we could call them questions, measurements that cover all the elements of a scale-up situation. And in a couple of years' time, we created a prototype, we piloted it, and now we have a tool by which founders of what we call hippo companies, high impact potential startups, can measure their companies, their status, their current scale of readiness, their competencies, also discover resource needs and perhaps blind spots that they need to cover. And this, in best case, to these founders and innovators like Raluca, you maybe witnessed a bit in cases earlier, the founders, their eyes may open and they might think that, wow, I mean, it might be the fastest way for us to gain better readiness and be more successful faster if we actually bring into the team, full-time into the team, or even part-time sometimes, new people, so that we complement what we have with people who also would like to be partners and be parents to our venture child. So that is basically the long story, maybe told hopefully a bit short. So now today we have a tool available which basically is kind of helping now founders to bring in the missing competencies and complement the founder teams.
Thank you, Marco. Indeed, I got a chance to try the instrument with one of our clients and to see the value that it brings and how it mirrors and reflects the many angles of the team members, because it's an instrument that is meant to be filled in collectively. So it's a collective overview by the company and by the company team, and we shall be using the Hippometer again within our mentoring program, Breakthrough to Scale. Thank you very much. And I would like to go back a little bit to this venture children that you call, and to ask you, there is indeed this, it looks like a chasm, it looks like an abyss. So when you look at this Hippo company and you see, okay, it's that tremendous potential there, you can imagine what it can do for humankind and everything. But then you also see that in between this moment and the realization of that potential, there is apparently a void. It's like there is what's there. And sometimes the founders, they look at the void and they say, oh, what to do now? So what do you think is the most critical content of this abyss, of this chasm? What's the the painful the most painful point of this space?
It's a brilliant question. It is important now that we really look at this. It is like everybody wants to jump across the chasm or the void without actually building a bridge there. But it's not going to work like that. So what I mean by this is that when we have a potentially great company and it's proven, the invention is proven to work, we start to have investor interest, because investors, they seek for those potentially great companies. That's important. We have massive amounts of capital, and also investors competing for the best cases. So So we have investors who try to find early enough those great companies. Then we have lots of well-meaning programs and individuals and work that would help these founders to communicate their business case to these investors. So they kind of shout to each other from across this chasm or this void. Some well-meaning programs help founders to pitch, perfectly, to make the promises that they know the investors want to hear. And they know the investors, research funding programs, what is needed, and tailor make your pitch to exactly fit what is needed for them to hear, so you get the money. So there's the kind of urge to get the money fast. Both sides, the other side wants to hear big promises, the other side is ready to make those big promises. Now, the problem only is that when founders sort of are pulled, a little bit pushed to make those big promises, they often do it, so that it's like fun and let's make these promises and kind of let's just have good time and make these promises and pitch and kind of get the money and move on. But then when the kind of day arrives after, let's say, the closing of the deal, if it happens, and then you're supposed to meet those milestones and actually reach those projections that you gave out, the promises that you made, that you start to maybe sweat a bit and it's no longer fun anymore. So just to avoid, let's say, the hangover that sometimes arrives, it pays for the founders to actually independently, like, smart people, be ready to independently learn and study what you have, what you don't have. Don't just go fast to make up, put a makeup and a nice dress and kind of learn the song and the dance to get the money fast, without kind of going through the trouble of opening your ownership and inviting new, let's say, co-entrepreneurs, new individuals who would complement the team, your competence base. So it really pays off to get yourself right so that you can make promises that you can keep, so they understand what you're promising. If I put a kind of a little bit more, let's say, theoretical word here, or kind of a context, I would say that overall strategy and strategic thinking, strategic management is kind of missing out from the launch of startups, the kind of enterprise creation. It's a lot of tactical work, that goes into fundraising and pitching. It's not based on deeply strategic analysis and deep strategic competencies. And that is the kind of, let's say, message that I would send to founders, that it is kind of tough because the founders are often from a vertical which is not business study related. They not always have business experience, so they have to rely on mentors, coaches, programs to for this insight. So this is, I think, where I think, Ralka, you can make a big difference with your program and your mentoring with this thing that you're now getting onto.
Indeed, Marco, this is what I wanted to arrive as a next topic and the last topic for our discussion now. Your Hippoenabler, on our side, Luminspino, we are this type of organizations, companies that we are, that our role is to support, to enable, to be there, accompanying this journey of innovation and of scaling. So we are observing. much of our time. So at least what we are doing every time that we speak to companies and to startups and so on, never mind the stage of development, we observe a lot. We ask many questions and we observe, because there are patterns. We can see patterns, but again, we don't want to fit any team or any company into patterns. But this observation is important because it then goes to some type of service, some type of intelligence that we can provide to the companies. Because we observe, we can systematize the knowledge, find those inflection points, find those milestones, and communicate about them. So when we work with companies, what we are doing in the mentoring program, for example, we have something like a roadmap. We have a map. But this is not a fixed map. Okay, so we have a map. We explain to the companies, okay, be careful there and there, look out for traps there and there, look out for opportunities there and there, approach them like this or like this. So but it's a moving map. It's not a fixed map. We are also writing down all the additional needs that we find in the communication with companies, that we find during the mentoring program, and we are responding to those needs as they arrive to us, you know. So how do you see this role of organizations that are enablers, that provide these services like you do, like we do? How do you think that we can improve this intelligence? How can we be better for for our companies, for our clients?
Yeah, I think when we really have the interest of the enterprise at heart, the interest of the new enterprise at heart, this is a key thing, because when you look at the players, we have the founders, we have the investors who they seek, then we have the enterprise, and it's a bit technical, but there's a difference between the founders and the enterprise. So you can bet when you to give the best value to the founders as an enabler, you put the interest and the best interest of the enterprise as number one, because it needs to be understood. And when we start to understand that it's the enterprise we're building, then it sort of becomes more easy also for founders to kind of take a bit distance for themselves from the enterprise and think, well, who else should be here with us to grow this enterprise? Not so that it's like our sole responsibility, and like, if I now have this invention, I have invented something and now have this enterprise, that my goodness as a person, my sort of like value as an individual is somehow measured by not just by what I have invented, but also, can I also build this company and make it a unicorn? It's completely unreasonable to require from people who have invented something wonderful that they somehow would carry the responsibility to solely and alone create also the unicorn out of it. We need to bring, it's like football or ice hockey, my more favorite sport here in Finland. But you need to have the role players, different positions. You don't just put goalkeeper or defense, but you need to have offense as well and different roles. So in the same way, we need to build those companies. So when it comes to how can we help them better as enablers, we should, all we can do, everything we can do to open the eyes of the founders to realize that there's a lot of competence an enterprise requires to have, and that it's okay that you don't have it all. And the more you have an invention box, the greater your innovation, the more you would need to require and insist that your enterprise also has in commercial competencies, because you have brought maybe technical, maybe disruptive, innovative core to an enterprise. So as founder, you should somehow step up and start to require that somehow you have to find the people who along your side become parents, and not just someone who comes in there for a quick buck. This is the important thing. So not just anybody behind the next corner who has a big CV from a big firm or something. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about best enablers can help founders find the right people to complement their team and to reach the market, and also actually, also speak up the pre-money valuation with investors, and like I said, make strategically solid promises to investors so that you don't have to kind of sweat the first day that you have closed the deal. So in short, the best enablers help the founders to breathe. The best enablers give them actually more happy days than they would otherwise have, because they can help them build a team and kind of concentrate on where they are at their best. There's a lot of talk about how a scientist would have to go to away from their comfort zone. Well, in some ways, kind of right, but I think I would just say that it's enough sometimes to go away from your comfort zone to that extent that you invite someone along your side. Not so that you go away from your comfort zone and if you're a dog, you try to become a cat.
But Marco, thank you. This is fascinating. The way that you put this wisdom and these conclusions from your work with companies. That is absolutely fascinating, and I would like to leave it here. So thank you for our talk, and well, we are looking forward to collaborate even more as we are doing the Hippoenablers with our mentored companies in the program. We would be very glad to share those conclusions with you and bring you as well, to invite you to share with our companies how you see the results. Thank you, Marco, and until soon.
Thank you, Raluca, and all the best for every endeavor.
Oliver, coming back to our discussion about how we are actually supporting companies, and the role of an enabler. INAM is an enabling network. The role of an enabler, which one is it in terms of measuring our performance towards companies? How does INAM measure the performance of the programs for the benefit of companies? And I will then share a little bit about how we started to do this for Luminspino.
Absolutely, happy to share our evaluation mechanisms and maybe even KPIs. So on the program level, we do of course ask mentors as well as startups for feedback, which gives us insight about the quality of the startups, their performance, their in the mentoring sessions, and their potential also. But we, as I said, also ask startups to give feedback, not only ranking, evaluating the sessions that we've run, but also in what way they are thinking about changing their business model, changing their go-to-market, etc., etc. And finally, of course, also how many useful connections they have made during the program. That is certainly kind of the first level of evaluation that we have. Then the second level is that we actually track the performance of our startups that have gone through the programs over a longer period of time. And many incubators and accelerators look at the sums invested in them. We find that this is not the right KPI at this stage for the startups that we look at, because traditionally a digital startup will have much more opportunity to attract higher funding sums than the typical hardware deep tech startup. So what we are looking at is basically the survival rate, which is basically meaning how long does the startup survive? How long are they active in the markets? How long does the startup as such exist or go out of business? And here I think we're very, very happy to have a figure of more than 90% of the startups that have come out of the first 5 vintages, i.e. 2016 to 2021, that more than 90% of those startups that participated in that in those years are still in the market. And for the latter years, i.e. 22 and 23, it's of course 100% or near 100%. So that is our overarching KPI, which we are very proud of. We're not saying that it's all thanks to us, but I think it's due to a number of things. The selection procedure, which is involving lots of experts also from our members, the training, but then of course also the people that drive the companies, that drive the startups, and bring them to success.
In the case of Luminspino, I should mention that the pilot phase of the mentoring program Breakthrough to Scale, which provides mentoring for climate innovation, is funded by Innovation Norway, by Norway Grants. And in our case, we have established an internal quality management unit, and we have a quality plan. And we are overlooking throughout the entire mentoring program very specific stages in the program. For example, from the get-go, we have estimated couple of KPIs with each company in terms of, for example, reducing the time needed for getting from technology readiness level 4 to 5, for example, or reducing the time needed to market. So by comparison to previous performance of the company. These are examples of KPIs that we established from the very beginning. And I must say that we are not only working with startups, we are working with SMEs. So we need to bear in mind that most of our mentees are already established and well consolidated SMEs that now create new innovative products and processes. Then we have, throughout the mentoring program, we have the evaluation surveys coming from the mentors in 2 steps of the mentoring program. One is after the diagnosis phase, and the other one is after the setting up of the action plan for the mentoring. And then at the end of the program, then the voice of the companies is very well heard. And we have a final, let's say, so-called performance survey, where we ask companies about their view on what they have received. But nevertheless, we have, the mentoring program is not fixed. I mean, it has a process behind, and it is systematic. It has a systematic approach. But nevertheless, we are very much attentive to the new needs that we identified throughout the mentoring program with each of the companies. And we have a way to adapt to these needs. So as the mentoring goes on, every time that we see a new need, we are responding to it immediately. Because, well, it has to be very flexible and adaptable, but nevertheless, it has behind a very clear and systematic process. Now, looking at a few examples of companies, like the Admacom Scale, for example, can you give us a couple of examples of companies? You don't have to say the names, but to mention what type of innovation and what was the innovation case?
Absolutely. There's one that I would like to point to because they've raised very successfully their Series A just 2 months ago, at a time where fundraising is not so easy anymore. They are basically in the bioplastics field. So they use agricultural waste to do a plastics replacement material. And they've been in our program in 2020 and started raising their Series A in midsummer last year and closed it at the end of this year and came out of that with a roughly 40 million round, which is, as I said, for the time and for the technology, quite an achievement. That is one example that I like sharing. There's, of course, other technologies, for instance, in the quantum technology space, where on the one hand, display technologies, but then also computing technologies are very relevant. Quantum technologies have received quite a lot of funding in past years. However, for the individual startup, it's starting to become easier. But at the moment, or in the past 2-3 years, it has been quite difficult because the technology has not yet reached a level of trust with investors that they would bet on it if a startup is moving it forward. That said, I've met a startup in the US recently that is working exactly in that space, and they have managed to attract very early on a quite significant seed round, and then basically scaled up by issuing or setting up their own SPAC, and are saying that they will release or go to market with the first quantum computer sometime in 2024. That, of course, for the field is quite idiosyncratic or quite an exception. As I said, here in Germany, we feel that particularly quantum is still very reliant on public funding as opposed to private sector investment.
In terms of a couple of examples that I would like to give from the Breakthrough to Scale mentoring program of Luminspino, I would like to refer to companies that are implying advanced materials, to be in tune with your profile. So, and by the way, as we are dealing with climate innovation, the new materials, the trends in new materials, they influence a lot the innovation which is climate relevant, of course, because it has so many positive impacts that it can create. So. One of the examples is a company that is using the mycelium technology. This is coming from mushrooms, the active ingredients, and they are using organic waste, so mainly coming from agriculture, and with the use of the mycelium, they transform these materials into construction materials, construction and also for interior design. The innovation is based on a patent, so they have their own proprietary knowledge that they are patenting. So this is one example, and the other one that it is also very interesting in terms of the time needed to arrive to the market. This one is a breakthrough innovation. It is lighter than air device that will be able to float in the stratosphere. So that to gather information on meteorological purposes and also climatology. So this is a very interesting challenge for us because, and it's a very strong challenge for us to work with this innovation. Currently at the level of proof of concept and implying a lot of innovation and research in terms of the structure and the materials that will be actually that will make up this lighter than air aircraft. You know, it's actually a balloon, lighter than air balloon. Good. So now coming to the concluding remarks of our podcast, and just to say that we will title this podcast absolutely with some words that will be connected to the success of mentoring programs and of coaching companies, but looking at the sessions with the companies, the mentoring sessions, and how the results will be taken into the future. Please address two things. What you believe to be a successful mentoring session, how it looks a successful mentoring session. And then secondly, how do you see the INAM programs going into the future?
Great. Yeah, what do I see as a successful mentoring session? I think for me personally, I'm also mentoring startups in our programs, but also outside of that. I think a really successful mentoring session is when minimally each party, that includes, of course, the mentor, takes something from it, a learning, a new bit of information, a new connection or whatever. So you have a win-win situation. That for me is the ideal situation. In our programs, of course, I'm a bit more focused on the success of the startups. Hence, I would hope that they take away or have more takeaways from the sessions than the mentors. However, since we don't pay our mentors, so it's all volunteers, they also have to take a bit away. And I've described before what that could be. When and how do we go into the future with our programs? I think having introduced 2 new programs in the past, it is now all about optimizing them, checking whether we are still addressing the full needs of the startups, whether we need to, let's say, bring in more investors, more scientists, more experts, or less of each party of these. If we need to include other trainings, and that is really the next step for our program. The other step is, of course, the financing of the program. Currently, we are financing these programs from our own finances, from our own budget, meaning it's an invest for us on which we, as an organization, don't get any direct return. So we have to think about how do we ourselves, I don't want to say commercialize our program because I don't really want to go completely that way, but how we address the sustainability in terms of financing of our programs. And that is particularly relevant for the Atma Lab program, where in the past, thanks to funding from the Berlin Senate, we were able to actually provide lab access to the startups that participate. In the future or in the current program, we just partner with lab providers, but there's still fees for the usage to be paid, which is a problem for some of the startups at their very early stages. So that's another topic that we need to address, and where we need to find solutions to be able to ideally provide very cheap lab access again.
Right, and this lab access is really key to many innovative startups, indeed, that have tangible products and they need to test and to certify and to seek the standardization of the results. Right. Then, from our experience. In the mentoring sessions, we always seek what we call the overriding question. You know, it's like having 2-3 discussions with a team of a company, mostly 1 or 2 people. We notice that there is always an overriding question, that there is something that is priority number one for the company, you know. And sometimes this is not communicated immediately. Sometimes us as mentors, we need to discover that together with the company. And then when we discover that overriding question, then we understand that the goal of the mentoring needs to be connected with this. So the goal of the mentoring should respond to this overriding question. It's not always easy, but is doable. Then looking into the future, of course that until April next year, we shall pilot this program under the public funding that we have. Nevertheless, after that, it will be openly available for companies. Luminspino being a consultant company, then we need to find a way to monetize this, and of course, it will be a business model to deliver the mentoring services. Nevertheless, what we might do would be to maybe to change a little bit the name of the program, not from breakthrough to scale to another thing, but from mentoring to perhaps advisory support or something like that, because I noticed that some companies, when they hear the word mentoring, that they believe that, you know, the traditional way to mentoring is that somebody that is supposed to have more experience and more wisdom speaks to a company and teaches them what to do. But that's not what we are looking for. We are looking for to go shoulder by shoulder with the company and to provide them something systematic and support them not to go into the pitfalls, but to take the opportunities. So perhaps the name will be changed from mentoring to something else, but nevertheless, the process behind will be valorized in the future as well. And we will stay in touch with the companies and understand what more needs they have in the upcoming months and years. Oliver, I thank you very much for your thoughts, for what you have shared. And well, we shall remain in communication. We have some future plans as well between our organizations, but this will be announced next year. So, well, fingers crossed. Thank you, Oliver, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Raluca. It's been a very pleasant discussion, and I've also learned a lot about Luminspino. Thanks a lot.